I'm actually a lawyer by background, and the reason why I got into like blockchain technologies is because I started hacking the law. I fell in love with the idea of using technical knowledge and also like design to solve real problems.
What were the opportunities that you see for Cello specifically and just crypto in the wider ecosystem there? And then how has that evolved now with the work of Celatam, and how is that being refined from here on onwards?
So one of the things that I would like to see growing in the next years, and something that I have like worked very hard for, is how do we create a critical mass of thinkers and also doers who are ready to like embody some of the good principles that we as a community want to push forward and provide the technologies like attached to it. So
could you explain a little bit more on what are community currencies and on which blockchain are they gonna run according to legislation? Welcome everybody to the first episode where we have a great guest in Frontera. Today we have Camila Rioja. She led Celatam for 2 years. Now she's the president of Plexus Institute. And we wanted to start the guest episodes with Mila because she's one of the most knowledgeable persons out there to talk about crypto and Brazil. And we were just joking that basically this podcast is a Brazilian in Sao Paulo with a guy from Guatemala that right now is in Honduras working and using a t-shirt of Estonia, the football team. That's really random. And a Mexican, that's me, in Mexico City talking about crypto. So Mila, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Better now, feeling the Latam vibes with both of you. Thank you so much for the opportunity of coming here and once more discussing our favorite topic together.
Perfect. Yeah, we're really happy to have you. And first, I want to make a quick intro about you. I just said two positions about what you've done in crypto in the past, but give us a rundown of your career and the things that you've done.
So long or very long story short, I'm actually a lawyer by background, and the reason why I got into like blockchain technologies is because I started hacking the law. And what do I mean by that? I mean that I fell in love with the idea of using technical knowledge and also like design to solve real problems. So at a certain point in my career, my specialty was law and economics, but I was also part of this global movement called the Legal Hackers. We were over 20,000 volunteers exploring creative solutions in the intersection of like law and technology, but also the society. So the part of the group that I was more linked to was exploring like building solutions. And through that, I had the opportunity like to evolve my career and to have like a small development team as a spin-off of a law firm. So we had our own like ways of operating, and what we were doing was like plug and play with available technologies and solutions at the time to provide legal services. And that was a super interesting like opportunity up until the point that I realized through like exploring these technologies and by getting to know blockchain technology that I actually wanted to do something else, that I wanted to like hack the social fabric of our society. And by that, and already telling you a little bit of what I like thinking about like regenerative solutions. So after that, my career was basically like setting up my own consulting firm. This was circa 2019, and I was helping like international companies and also like blockchain related projects to enter Latin America. And eventually in 2021, I was hired first by C Labs, but then by Cello Foundation to lead their Latin American practice. While at it, after almost 3 years, I co-founded Celatam, which is an initiative that brings together like different stakeholders and some community funds to do initiatives within the Cello ecosystem. Parallel to that, it's been 1 year since I funded, and this is what I do now with most of my time, the Plexus Institute. But I'll stop here just to see if you have any questions prior to me introducing Plexus, because it is kind of a different animal.
So Mila, one question that I have around Celatam, like I'd love to double click on your rich experience with Celatam. I mean, I think Cello, one of the things they've done really well is having a very big presence in the region. So walk us through like what it was like being at the helm of the Celatam campaign and then leading Cello in Latin America as well, and just like high level insights on what were the opportunities that you see for Cello specifically and just crypto in the wider ecosystem there? And then how has that evolved now with the work of Celatam, and how is that being refined from here on onwards?
So I love talking about that. And actually, there's a link that I've done. I prepared like a presentation, and you can have access to it on my LinkedIn. It has over, I don't know, 12,000 views on LinkedIn, which I think it's a relevant number for such a medium in which I tell this story, right? And I also share a little bit of my learnings. It's like 10 main moments and how they developed into like these different deliverables in the community. I feel super lucky, to be fairly honest with you, because I was able during that time to sit in different positions and to understand how different parts of the ecosystem work. So I was involved previously in Seal Labs into like product making and partnerships like initiation. When I joined Cello Foundation, the nature of the work changes a bit. And then we start doing something that I love, which is nurturing the ecosystem. And then I go out of Cello Foundation, right, with a community grant to start and lead for 1.5 years a community initiative. And now I believe that if I do my job correctly, the further I go, it's actually something that is positive for the community, because that means that we were able to like create a critical mass to occupy such spaces. So at this moment, I'm like simply an advisor of Celatam, who is now like this initiative with around 7 people working on it and doing like different initiatives in different Latin American countries. So going more in depth and your specific question, I think that Cello is a bit, and I can say it now in the position that I am, it's like underrated, by the community as a whole, because I also believe in what you said. Not only we do have presence as a community, but we are dealing with real world use cases for like regenerative practices, which I personally believe it's a very good narrative for like the whole Latin American space. So one of the things that I would like to see growing in the next years, and something that I have like worked very hard for, is how do we create a critical mass of thinkers and also doers who are ready to like embody some of the good principles that we as a community want to push forward and provide the technologies like attached to it. So some of the most relevant like programs that I have led or initiated and now other people are leading are related to first like research. Almost all of the cases, and you can see in this like a small brochure that I did, is based on like understanding a market. So we did like a very interesting like strategy in El Salvador in 2021 that was based on like understanding the market and talking to the people and trying to provide to the individuals and also to the builders what they wanted. If you look at the Cello Latin America like website, you're going to find at least 5 to 10 different researches on Latin America. So you're going to be able to like gather a lot of data and open source intelligence on like market and also on developers and also like the community feels. And it's a very specific like set of the community, which is like the refi builders. But I think you're going to find a lot of interesting things in there. So to sum up, during my days, either on C Labs, Cello Foundation, or in Celatam, the activities that I was involved on was from like setting partnerships to helping products to advising founders on their journey, but also co-organizing like events, hackathons, both in the traditional sense that we're active on, but also like by connecting some legacy opportunities, such as the hackathons that I undertook in partnership with the Brazilian federal government, for that matter.
It's really crazy for me that, I don't know, in the things that you've done, you can collaborate with the government in a hackathon. Maybe in other parts of Latam that might be possible, but for example, in Mexico, if we did that, it'll need to be a hackathon in 2040 because we're so slow at a governmental level. And one of the things that I'm really curious about is in Frontera, in the weekly recaps, we always say that Brazil is like its own continent. Brazilians are super interesting people. You have different culture. Also, I was last week on Friday on Solana Apex talking with some Brazilians and understanding what's their approach to investing, what's their approach to crypto. And you're a really, really, really fascinating people. You're the largest market in Latin America. So for some people that doesn't understand the crypto ecosystem in Brazil, how could you summarize it? What's the general message of what's the crypto landscape in Brazil and what are crypto users? We always say that Brazilians are more degens. So what do you feel when we say that to a Brazilian?
It's funny because I would say we are institutional degens. Does that even make sense? But what I'm trying to say is that some of the use cases, like I agree with you, and it's not that that's actually my favorite thing. As I told you, like I'm a regen person mostly, right? I am very much concerned about like taking a look at the nature and the culture and the people aspect of Brazil and Latin America. And I had the opportunity to do so like formally, right? And try to ignite what makes sense for us as a community. But here in Brazil, like mainly it's degen and institutional. And what do I mean by that? Institutions in general, either like traditional, like legacy, the state, or the incumbent players in technology, and why not like the banks themselves and the payment systems and so on and so forth, they are interested in learning the technology. They are open to understand how that's going to impact their businesses, and to do like sometimes small scale experiments, some other times like larger scale experiments that brings the knowledge that enables people to think or to try experimenting with such. So one of the things that I find interesting to comment on that regard with you guys is precisely the fact that when we did this hackathon, the first one with the first one with the Ministry of Economics, and the second one with the Treasury Department, we proposed open source hackathons. And we proposed hackathons that kind of like changed the optics in how we solve problems. And now you have like, you kind of allow me to bring a bit of the thinking behind like Plexus Institute. So me being a lawyer, I also studied economics. I, prior to this whole like technology life, I used to have an international career in such fields. Then I started with like this tech company, and this evolves to my consulting. And then one amazing partner asks for me for like focusing on them, which is Cello, right? And out of that, I start Plexus. And why do I do that? Precisely because I think not only Brazil is a different animal, but Latin America is also like a very different and particular animal when it comes to society, relationships, technologies, and like hunger. What do we want to consume and how do we want to consume it? So Plexus is an institute of science and technology focused on democratizing access to the benefits of emerging tech. So what does that mean in practice? That we want to focus our actions in understanding what type of technology can serve the people of Brazil, the people of Latin America, and the common interests of such in this new area. Because we have like a bet. And we bet, my friends, that the intersection of like real world public goods, digital public infrastructure, and digital public goods, and what we, the emerging technology people, think about it when it comes to blockchain or to artificial intelligence, is going to be what's going to mold the scenario of the technology and the society that we're going to live in. So considering that specifically, how does Brazil and Latin America position in this forefront scenario where the most necessary infrastructure is not only right a good road, but actually technology that can like serve and provide for the people and also like protect the important like institutions or the values that we have collaboratively.
And speaking on that, Mila, I mean, like, because we do a lot of deep dives in Brazil specifically, like, what do you think are the prerequisite conditions that Brazil currently sees and faces today, and where you think these advanced technologies, especially crypto in particular, right? Like, what do you see us being able to tackle with the advent of the adoption of crypto across the entire country, for example?
So a very important and necessary wave that we could be thinking about like surfing together is community currencies. And I'll tell you the reason for it is because whenever you go to a crypto conference, I don't know of one Ethereum ecosystem community conference that hasn't like at least one or two or five or 10 talks on like public goods. And if you take a look at what's being discussed, it's 100% like credible that you're going to see somebody talking about community currencies. I'll give you one example on like DevCon. I was just in Bangkok, and two important things were happening, I think, on the same day. So the DACC day that Vitalik pushed forward, and also one initiative by Ethereum Next Billion initiative, where one of their grantees was discussing community currencies, because this very concept of a community currency, so something that goes through and circulates and lives in a circular economy and has like the individuals deciding on the rates of loans and the general governance. It's something that we crypto people we blockchain people, we believe we invented. But actually Brazil has like over 170 or 180 community banks where they use community currencies nowadays on Web2. So what I'm telling like the crypto world and also Latin America is that, hey, pay attention here, just close to you guys, we have 170 different communities who have implemented community currencies. Sometimes they are already connected to the payment infrastructure. They're boosting the circular economy. They're providing credit to each other, which is basically what we discuss all day, either being regen or degen. And they are doing this in a way that is surviving and thriving through the years. Do we want to like approach those individuals, those groups, and try to like prove or test or experiment with the fact that they're already doing it on Web3, and then maybe we can suggest like testing what types of improvements in these processes using Web3 technology can bring to them? So this is one of the things that I believe it will be of like ultimate relevance in Brazil in this year, and for different reasons. The first one is because we already have like the appetite for it. The second thing is that because there is a legislation that is being voted and may come into place this year that says that every community currency needs to be on a blockchain. So imagine that.
I was I was like in a parallel frame, but my eyes opened a lot. Like what? What's that
What?
regulation? That
How?
yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah. Exactly. But Mila, first I want to understand something, because
Yeah.
when you talk about community currencies, the thing that comes to mind is a parallel currency like the Bowies in the UK, that are these
Yes.
bills with the face of David Bowie that they use in this hipster neighborhood and they accept it. Could you explain a little bit more on what are community currencies and on which blockchain are they going to run according to legislation?
Okay, so according to legislation, they're not going to rule on what type of blockchain, right? This is undecided yet. And maybe that's not even going to be decided through legislation. But on what a community currency is, I'll use some of the Brazilian examples. So between 20 and 30 years ago, a community in the northeast region of Brazil, in a very interesting place, they set up, it's called Fortaleza. So this community was there and trying to thrive, but with very little access to capital. And out of a loan of 2,000 reais, which is roughly $400-300 in the current scenario, they were open to start this community bank, which was basically given credit from and to the community individuals. So let's say I was living in there and my ability is to, I don't know, do pretty nails. And I wanted like 50 reais out of a loan to be able to buy some paint and do like a small shop where I could have clients and make them happy with a good service, but also with a nice setting. So I would go to this community, to these individuals and say, can I have 50 reais, please? And because I was providing there the service within the specific community and with an appeal of like a circular economy, once this credit is poured into, it starts like going around. So you're going to see a very interesting scenario with community currencies in Brazil because they are not inflationary, they're deflationary, they are related to like circular economies. So basically what's being done here, it's like small groups, neighborhoods, or small cities, they sometimes get some sort of like government and state backing to put like social benefits and sometimes credits to ignite the local circular economy. Does that make sense to you?
Okay, so basically, the thing that I don't fully understand is that basically it's like putting some capital into an economic system, but that capital flows in Brazilian reais, or is it a different token asset currency?
So this is a very good question because it's actually, I think it's going to start unlocking the understanding of how this goes. According to the current legislation, you need to have like one-to-one in fiat backing. So you do need this credit. Either this credit is going to come from like a company or the government or an association of people, and then you put this credit in a bank, in a TradFi bank, or you put it in a community bank, right? That is operated with like rules within the community. And then you have like a digital Web2 payment platform whose like fees revert back to the community upon their usage. So it's pretty much blockchain-like, but implemented on Web2 and bringing the benefits of the transactions and some of the rules on how people have access it back to the community.
How does this, like, I'm curious, Mila, because the other piece that's interesting in Brazil is Drex, right? And everything that's going on there. I
Yeah.
think in Latin America, Brazil is probably the most advanced country when it comes to stablecoin, CBDC policies. So I'm curious how you sort of contrast like general takes on Drex and what's happening there and how this contrasts also to community currencies as well.
That's a very interesting question because like Drex has explored and studied different use cases that so far have been more linked to some institutional use cases. So you're going to see different banks and payment processors and sometimes some like pooling opportunities or tokenizers or whatever coming together to export traditional bank use cases. But we cannot rule out, right, that eventually one of these use cases could be a community currency. Me personally, I think at least you, because you know a bit of how I feel and how I think, right? So personally, what I believe is of community's best interest is perhaps to have an open source option of a community currency that operates according to community rules, but also obeys to KYC, to AML, and for anything that is provided for in the traditional regulation. And the reason for that is because most of the times this is public money. And we need to separate things, right? Public money and private money. Public money sometimes comes from like taxes. So I believe we would agree that if we are paying taxes and if this money is being allocated to something, we should have the right to see how this money is being employed and if this money is really being employed. And I think it's different when we talk about like private money. So I understand that a good mix that would be both protective of the individual's like privacy, right, and also protective of the collective in terms of what's being done and bringing transparency to these projects would be to maybe use like Drex as the collateral, right, for the community currency, to have oracles showing that, yeah, indeed, you can have X amount of this community currency flowing in this specific blockchain according to these rules and being lended by this own community within themselves according to their own ways and generating maybe, right, some revenue for like the system because of course there will be fees for the transactions, but this coexisting with like whatever the legacy says it should occur, because it is what it is. If you're dealing with like public money, there should be this level of interaction. So my ideal world, at least now, and of course I want to deep dive on this and discuss with interesting people, would be to see how these two things could coexist, but with different rules. And the community currency rules being, to the extent possible, decided and governed by the community who is using them. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating because I can't think of someone that is not Brazilian or Latin American listening to this, and they're thinking like, what the hell is she talking about? Like, community currencies, for example, in Mexico, community currencies are absolutely banned because the Mexican government want to centralize the access to capital, and they want to make sure that in our thinking, a community currency is parasitic to the local fiat currency because it pulverizes value. But the way that you create it is that basically you solve for that because it needs to be collateralized with Brazilian reais. So it's kind of like a layer two for fiat for unbanked populations, or not even unbanked populations, but local
No, but it
populations.
is. Community currencies, they usually go for like very not to people who are in financial need, because it's usually the people who are receiving like benefits or for helping communities grow. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I would love to see how we could collaborate with each other on a Latin American level to like maybe use these opportunities to create better avenues for conversations, right, and positive conversations, and not conversations to the extent like, oh, I want to whatever you, I wish you didn't exist, so let me
Yeah.
see what I do for you not to exist, instead of like, okay, can we just like do some improvements that lead us to a better outcome of like equilibrium. And I do understand everything that you're saying, and we still have this opportunity here. I cannot talk to you about like tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 months from now, in 6 months from now, But today, this is the opportunity that we have. And I believe as Latin America, we should embrace this and start showing that we have ways to provide this. And this is good for the population and this is good for the economy. This can only strengthen a country if people have
Yeah.
access to like food and healthcare and also to work and good work and to like knowledge. Come on, this can only like leverage whatever it's best in tech and social whatever studies and economics to the greater like good of everybody. So here, guys, just so you know, I'm talking with you as if we were like in a mesa de bar, right? Do you know what that is?
No.
Mesa de bar.
What's that?
So it's when you go to a bar with friends and maybe you have like a
Okay.
bit of beer or whatever. I'm not going through much in a very like institutional way. I'm not speaking here for Plexus Institute. I'm not speaking here for Celatam. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
speaking here as Mila saying, guys, shouldn't we be thinking about this? Is there a way that we can find like mutual grounds and start showing that whatever that we do on Web3 really has impact? Because this is actually something we're talking about the good side, right? But hey, can Web3 really bring any impact or any better possibilities for these 170 communities who do it just fine on Web2?
Yeah.
That's
Can
always
we?
such an important like question, right? No, I mean it's one of the things that I think this space is always like looking for its meaning, right? And we like there's so much LARPing, right? Live action role playing that comes into, oh yeah, the crypto's gonna change the world and crypto has all these different benefits, but until we're actually pushing it, and I think you're one of the people that's trying to do this at scale, not just at the local level, but also at the institutional level as well, right? And so I think there's like so many insights and learnings that you just managed to amalgamate across Celatam and also Plexos. And speaking of those insights and learnings, like I would love to get a sense for if you were to advise at a high level, let's say there's like a protocol, or let's say that there's a foundation or a team that wants to engage at the local level with users at the very last mile, what insights would you give them? Because you led all of like Sandals expansion into the region as well. So tell us more about, strategies and thoughts that work effectively when it comes to engaging with local users throughout Latin America.
So we're now talking about users, right? We're talking about people, and I don't see other way of starting this if not by talking to people. You need to talk to real people and understand how they do what they do, and understand whether your product, understand whether your solution, your activity really has a use case. Because okay, you can throw a party and then all of a sudden you have a very interesting community who is wearing like your swag, your t-shirt, but then it doesn't fly in there. The other thing that I would say is like start from the problems that these individuals and these communities have. You can have access to like NGOs and third sector and say, what have you been researching on? And based on the researches of people who are actually in the ground, you start to like assess what type of technology goes in there, right? And what type of service provision is applicable to that context. So what I would also say is that usually this is not an effort that can be easily done only by one player. This is an ecosystem effort. It's not like, oh, I have this amazing technology that does like a very pretty blue pen. Okay, nice to you, but like, what about the paper? Do people actually write in papers still? What are the papers made of? Like, who are the stakeholders they're offering this paper? Can you actually like do something with the local economy and the local players in order to like offer something that evolves whatever is in there without breaking? You don't want to break communities, you don't want to break ecosystems, you don't want to break economics. Well, at least I don't, but some people do, and we need to live with that. But if we don't, if we want to bring like an evolution, we really need to understand what it is. So very, very quickly, just to finalize, 3 steps that can never go wrong. Never. 1, research. 2, small scale tests with prior definition of success. What am I talking about? Okay, I studied about stable coins. I understand the size of the market. I understand how to get into the market and who are the users. I have $10 million in budget, or I only have $10 in budget. What is the definition of success of what you would do or achieve with those 10? And after you've done this, after you have like proved and assessed, you go to stage 3, which is growth. So listen to people, do your homework, do your research, test small and scale. Nothing new, right?
Mila, this has been great. Thank you a lot for all these insights, and I'd love to start closing the podcast. So this is my analysis and my diagnosis. So if I were a crypto company trying to, or crypto project trying to enter Brazil, my key message would be they are institutional giants with an enormous and therefore diverse market that prioritizes local solutions. How does this sound?
It sounds amazing. When I would just make an edit to it, not local solutions, but solutions that serve the locals.
Okay,
I don't
perfect.
think we're close to cooperation.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I see. So basically, you'll prioritize what works for the local people, not necessarily a local product or solution.
Not. I think we're super open to collab.
Amazing. And I think that also this comes a lot because of the hugely diverse country, and in studies of diversity, like you just need to look at biology. There are a lot of different biological relationships between organisms, like symbiotical relations, a lot of things. So that sounds like a lot of Brazil. And just to close the fireside questions, like really rapid fire questions, can you tell us top three benchmark users or people, companies that people should look in Brazil, not only in crypto, but who's doing a good job in Brazil?
So without naming names, as I told you, thing number one for people to watch out, Drex. This is the current name of the Brazilian central bank digital currency. And it is important to keep an eye on it because we're still deciding, they are still debating like the rules of it. So if you're more into like institutional use cases of blockchain and crypto, you need to learn about like CBDC and the discussions that are taking place here. Either you don't agree with CBDCs, either you do agree with CBDCs. It's important to know what's happening. And this is going to be an interesting year because the president of the central bank just changed. That means that new discussions may arise. So thing number two to keep an eye on, as we all told you, community currencies. I bet this is going to be a relevant theme in the upcoming year, either because of the blockchain legislation or because us, the blockchain and crypto people, are going to be put into test. Brazil already has community currencies that work on Web 2. Are we up for the task? Can we actually provide any value? And thing number three is, and I couldn't stop end this without saying, the pop-up city we're going to be organizing in Recife. Recife is an amazing city in the northeast region of Brazil. On October, we're going to be waiting for all of you here just so we can brainstorm and talk more about like different use cases applied to the real world and to the economics of Brazil and its people. So these are my three bets for 2025.
Really exciting. Coach, I think that we need to discuss our travel plans in October because this sounds really cool. And Mila, the final thing, this is going to be the signature question for people that come to Frontera is tell us one thing about Brazil that will surprise the crypto world.
That just like that.
Yeah, yeah.
The crypto world. We are way better at memes than you would expect.
Could you elaborate on that?
I know the dancing dog
you,
meme.
but like, no, seriously. Like Brazilians, they have this things go viral here whenever they really touch our daily lives and what we understand as like as part of our culture. I think that once we have like more opportunities of living together and you understand that Brazil is part of Latin America, it's not because our colonizer used to speak Portuguese that we are not part of Latin America. And we like finally, make this connection between what we operate. A lot of interesting like cultural takes and also like opportunities will be traded through memes here because that's actually how we make our like online presence.
I love it. I love it. I've seen this meme of the dancing dog, one that is like Meu Deus Borreguinho. Eh, I don't know. And I think that that makes a lot of sense because of we call it Dijon, but talking about it like Brazilians are Dijons, but also Brazilians are more prone to take risks, even like in their personal lives. They like also dancing a lot, so that's an initial risk to socialize. So I don't know, it's a really fascinating culture. Mila, thank you a lot for coming to Frontera. We'll continue doing this. We really appreciate all the things that you're doing. Where can people find you? Where can people find your work?
Here, listen to this podcast again and again. Make sure, and once you have like comments or doubts, I do tweet. a bit. It's Mila_Rioja. I am also on Instagram as Mila Rioja and on LinkedIn as Camila Rioja.
Amazing, perfect. Kush, my man, thank you for being here. Appreciate you as well. And see you on the next episode of Frontera. Take care. Bye bye.
This has been great, Mila. Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.